I can understand that not enough is done and said. But you also have to try to listen, because there are Muslim scholars, there are voices saying it's not acceptable. They are. I think that this is the problem. Very often, you know, myself, just after September 11, this country say, we don't hear you enough saying it. I'm keep on repeating it every day. This is my life now. I'm repeating, but it's as if some things are heard and others are not. One point which is important is that it's not enough. But, and this is something that I want to say also. Some people are telling us it's about mutuality and reciprocity. So in order to be well accepted here, you should condemn and be against what is happening there. I said, look, human rights, dignity, and laws are not a question of trade, and you do this, we do that. You criticize here, we're going to, no, it's a question of principles, once again, and I don't want to enter into something which is of reciprocity, tell us about what is happening there before, and we will see what we are going to do there, here. No, this is not. The dictatorships are not our masters, they are not our models, and we don't have to follow what they are doing. Now, in my position, for example, about Christianity or Christians being welcome in Saudi Arabia, I wrote this. This was now 15 years ago, that what is done by some of the governments and the petromonarchies, and even in Saudi Arabia, for example, not letting Christians practicing their religion is wrong. Condemning any kind of religious discriminations in Muslim majority countries. I did it. I cannot enter Saudi Arabia because I said something which is perceived by some as something which is, no, there is a hadith here. You know, there is the moratorium, but there is also some positions on this. So I think that I shouldn't do it to prove that I am really, dealing with something which is a reciprocity, but it's for me a moral duty to do that. And I think that something which is also very important is to take a stand on all these things. So I'm not the only one. There are many scholars who are saying that this kind of religious discriminations is not enough and should be criticized. And it's good also for our fellow citizens to listen to these voices, because we keep on trying to be heard, and it's very difficult.
But like, you have incredible influence, and if you put out that message in a place like Egypt, it would help create a debate about that.
You are an Egyptian?
I am an Egyptian.
So talk to the government and let them decide that I come in.
let him come.
I cannot come there. I'm banned from the country, so I'm speaking from Georgetown University, trying my best.
Hello, welcome. I'm Ravza Kavakçı. I'm a PhD student at Howard University in Political Science Department. I love the idea of reform. However, I have two parts in my question. First part is, how do you suggest, when there's so many different traditions among the Muslims and such different understandings in the Muslim world, how do you suggest coming to a consensus? I've heard my father talk about this for the last 35 years, that we should have the Muslim ulama should come together, make a decision, and agree on something. But we don't have that. I was wondering, how do you suggest we do that? And the other part is, when we have two aspects for especially the Muslims in Europe, we heard a question phrased, we in the West, us in the West. When we have the situation of us and them, the Orientalist narrative, and then when we have the Muslims in Europe who are violently reacting to the acts such as disrespectful acts such as the cartoon crisis or the minaret ban or the women being attacked, women with hijab being attacked in the subway. So how do you suggest having a balanced approach? What would be the approach to do that when you have such a variety of ideas in the West and in the Muslim world?
First, I would say that the variety or the diversity is an asset much more than a liability. And this is something that we can experience. It's very important. The starting point of this is really to come to this fact, which is historical and in the essence of Islam. I'm not putting an S to Islam by saying there are Islams. I'm saying there is one Islam as to the principles, Shia and Sunni principles and practices, we agree. Now there are interpretations. And the fact that we understand that we have to agree that there are accepted interpretations and diversity. This is where we have to push. But I am not expecting Muslims in the United States of America, in some specific issue, to have the same answers than Muslims in Muslim-majority countries. The diversity is, yes, you are in a specific context. And sometimes, already we are doing this. We have, you know, fatwa, legal opinions that are not the same in Switzerland than they were in France. For example, in the halal meat. Halal meat, you know, we had a decision in Switzerland that you can eat, and this was 50 years ago. You can eat the meat of Ahl al-Kitab because it was prohibited to slaughter in an Islamic way, while in France, the legal opinion was different because of the law. So the context is there. So this is not a problem. This diversity is an asset. We have to use it. We have to exploit it in a positive, constructive way. I don't have a problem with this in the West and in Muslim-majority countries. Now, in some issues, I want to push the Muslims to come in this issue. It is so grave and dangerous that we need a consensus. And this is why on the penal code, I want the Muslims to come together and say, why is it that we don't agree and in the way we are dealing, how do we implement this? And because we are talking about killing people, about death, about punishing, about this is something which is serious. So here there is a principle, there are principles that we have to discuss, and the very essence of what is the Islamic penal code in the light of the context. And now when we speak, be careful. When we speak about the way the Muslims are reacting in Europe and in the West, I think that that's not true, the image that we had riots in Europe against the cartoon, for example. This never happened. In fact, it was instrumentalized in Muslim-majority countries while the Danish people were not reacting. It means that the European Muslims today, as much as the American Muslims, understanding the 3 L's I'm always talking about in the last book, what I believe I'm speaking about, the 3 L's that are important: abiding by the law, knowing the language of the country, and being loyal to the country. And this is it. This is what is happening. So this means that now we have reached the level of what I'm calling the post-integration situation when we speak about contribution. And this contribution could be also an applied ethics. I would say that our contribution as Western Muslims is also to deal with Christians, with atheists, with Hindu, Buddhists, and Jews to come to this understanding. How do we deal with applied ethics in our contemporary world? We all know that we need more ethics in politics, more ethics in economy, and this is why we have to be contributing.
And I just wanted to thank you for using the term, the new we. I don't think there's us and them, we and you, but there's just we, all of us. Thank you.
I agree with us.
Hello, Dr. Ramadan. I'm Steve Sawmill. I work with I'm a co-founder of the DC Interfaith Peace Initiative. And I want to welcome you here, finally. I was here 6 years ago in this room when you were on the screen. Big screen. And you came in and came out, and I think we lost you eventually, as a matter of fact. I want to ask you about interfaith and whether do you advocate interfaith? I'm coming from your comment about protection, that you were saying in a non-Muslim country like this, communities form together and have rules for protection. And I'm thinking about outreach, and I'm thinking about whether you advocate interfaith work. And specifically, I'm interested whether you might be in contact with a group in DC called the Interfaith Council of Metropolitan Washington. Very active group under Reverend Clark Lobenstein. And if you're in contact with them, I'm thinking applied ethics would be a wonderful discussion topic there.
I'm not in touch with them, but I've been involved in many platforms and councils around interfaith dialogue. I am advocating interfaith dialogue. I think it's critical and crucial. But if you come to a book I wrote a few years ago called Western Muslims and the Future of Islam, I have one chapter on this. And putting some vision and conditions to how we have to deal with it. I have a problem with this interfaith